Howdy Fluffbots, it's me, Faolan and Cortez Cult. So, as you might have seen, first we had the top 15 best episodes of Tell Your Tale. Now, next in this series are my definitive picks for my worst 15 episodes of Tell Your Tale. Oh my, this video is going to get fiery. Either this will end very badly with everyone clicking away in anger, or I may be able to convince some of you all why I believe my ranking of episodes are the lowest of the low. Choosing what stories to include on this list were a total breeze compared to how conflicted I felt previously with the best stories. Although I ain't including any dishonorable mentions. Any episode that won't be touched on are way more memorable than those that will be discussed soon enough. Before we begin, a fair warning, Fluffbots. I fully encourage constructive criticism and respectful debate. Everybody's opinions and experiences with each and every episode produced so far are uniquely different, so I kindly ask you guys to please not take my thoughts as official. I firmly believe all the writers have the solid potential to gradually improve on their writing abilities. This video was created and meant for only entertainment purposes.
No worries, totally fine. I'm just gonna take a nap.
Rightio, I think I've delayed y'all for long enough. Without further ado, get ready to dive into the flames for my picks of the worst 15 episodes of Tell Your Tale. Oh gosh, a Christmas episode considered one of the worst? It's only because it's a bit boring, isn't it? Under the Mistletoe succeeds nicely in being a little break from all the story-heavy episodes that came before it, especially with it being a tie-in from the epilogue of Winter Wish Day. The general festive aesthetic is lovely as it's complemented by the sleepover action. Plus, getting to watch Sparky sleepwalk and becoming a midnight hungry brat was adorable. It's also humorous continuing to see Misty being incapable of capturing him. It's an easy plot to make use of a short runtime with nothing candidly important in this point in time. But then again, that's the issue. What exactly happens in this episode? Nothing, that's what. It was very predictable that Misty wouldn't succeed in her mission, as the concept of her being repeatedly unsuccessful felt repetitive in my eyes. Cloudpuff's silhouette was too easy to recognize, so it didn't come around as a surprise when he was eventually unwrapped. I honestly have no idea how the main five didn't wake up during Misty and Sparky's havoc. The only thing wrong with the final moments of the episode is how Opaline brutally insults Misty over the edge for a minor mistake that it makes her tear up. So, Opaline can have delight to herself with dumb dresses, but Misty can't? Sometimes it truly gets on my nerves with their relationship as it remains unchanged. Under the Mistletoe isn't as bad as the following episodes, it mainly falls flat because of a lost opportunity. Hence, there's no kissing at all! Stormblazer could have been made canon, but Gretchen Mallory chose to cockblock. Ugh. Now, hear me out. I don't really think this is a bad episode. Well, it just exists. Haunted House definitely serves the purpose for a brilliant Halloween episode. The spooky visuals, the occasional fun jump scare, and the snappy references to The Cabin in the Woods, Scooby-Doo, and Scaremaster from Friendship is Magic were a joy. Even the main characters are very hilarious at points. But the fact is, the plot is dead. No pun intended. Going off of the chain of events in Make Your Mark Chapter 2 with how many times Misty failed to capture Sparky, we would already know what the outcome was gonna be like a minute in. That's no fun with the mystery involved. Even Hitch's worry over Sparky wasn't seriously executed to develop a state of concern. Not to mention the power confusion over Misty's necklace. If Opaline is basically a hologram from out of the necklace, how is she able to be physically affected by anything on Misty's end? It's quite the unfortunate oversight on behalf of the writer, as the rope should have just slid through Opaline. It frankly made no sense at all for for the sake of a cheap gag and delaying the thrills further. We also cannot forget about that infamous fart joke. It's the worst kind of humor imaginable if not performed in the correct way, and I hate how Sparky is the main culprit for these kinds of jokes just because he's a baby. I can probably give it a pass for it allowing the main five to escape, however, it's too convenient for wrapping up the episode to ignore. Haunted House is like a piece of chocolate you get while trick-or-treating, but when you go to eat it, it has razor blades inside. This episode is not fit for consumption. Wow, I remember this episode so vividly from the day I watched it. It's the biggest piece of mediocrity I've ever seen. One Trick Pony has a perfect mixture of excellence and apathy. Rufus serves as a wonderful choice for the main protagonist, knowing how his character was once in prison back in Nightmare Roommate. His performance is ironically innocent for how much enthusiasm he possesses despite his lack of magical skills. Izzy also provides a great balance of emotion and relatability for Rufus to understand and fall back on. This episode gave Izzy one of her best roles in Tell Your Tale. It's a funky climax to the story when he proves himself worthy of his newfound magic by saving Glory from falling to her death. Sadly though, all of the background characters and the story is rather dull and uninteresting. They might not be important to the overall nature of the plot, but every time they appear on screen, nothing about them feels different from one another. None of them giving Rufus the chance to show off so they can appreciate the traditional type of performative magic was hurtful. It did make me groan how hasty they were to point hoofs at Rufus for causing trouble or outright yawn just because they are not impressed. And only after does he save a filly do the citizens open up their eyes. It's truthfully hypocritical as Rufus had the motivation all along and everybody was too blind to see it until they swiftly turn around and support him whenever it matters the most. I'd say One Trick Pony is only worth it if you want a quick buzz, but if you're looking for something more exciting or with a deeper meaning, this episode, without a doubt, isn't for you. Can this episode be described as anything else other than that time the main five became babies? The shock value of making a foal of me exceeds in getting a big reception from the public. It has a unique story of the mystique about what caused the de-aging of Sunny, Izzy and Hitch, and soon Cloudpuff. Pip and Zipp had a handful of comedic moments when they struggled to gather up their friends. The story too fits right into the notion of being a fine slice of life from the plot-driven episodes like usual. However, almost nothing in this episode actually pays off because what exactly happens again? It was like I was watching an episode of Super Nanny made for kids more than anything. There's not even a single sign of a lesson to be learnt about friendship or affinity in the world. Too many prolonged sections of baby Sunny, Izzy and Hitch causing a ruckus did drag out the runtime longer than necessary. I don't know why Pip would have kept that alicorn glitter from alicorn issues to herself when she had no idea what kind of trouble it would brew. The story makes Pip out to be a fool when in reality she's not that stupid to recklessly create something out of the blue. Oh, that's what the title means. Still though, my point stands. The episode as well went by in a flash when all they required was a lullaby. That's practically the most unoriginal solution to keep youngsters in check, and I was left befuddled why Zipp and Pip didn't do that from the start. Ah well, making a fool of me made a fool of me once. It won't fool me a second time if it happens again. Apologies, Ryan Denham. I love you, dude, but this is your worst script by far. No pun intended does the impossible and makes the Karen the good guy and the main characters the arseholes. Even before the intro rolls in, the main five are reduced down to being heedless of Posy's repeated demands. Once again, I love the subtle touches that make the episode that little bit more tolerable. The diversity of winter activities going out of control were cool engagement for any children watching. entertaining. They provided me with a chuckle or two, and the colourful visuals throughout, especially within Izzy's magical snow showcase, did blow me away. Although the story is slightly bland and the main protagonist having a sudden change in personalities was difficult to watch. They felt like completely different characters to how they are normally perceived. No way would they try to force someone to like something they don't. It contradicts how warmly understanding and compassionate they've shown to be in other episodes. By the end, all they have to say is, "That's it," upon having the epiphany that Posey prefers the summer like me. It's quite annoying how it took 4 minutes of mocking irritation for them to stop. When Sparky is displayed as the hero of the story and the most likable of the lot, you know that your story was a failure. No pun intended shouldn't have had a pun intended, because this episode was no joke. Sorry, Ryan. Forgive me, Tom Gidman. This is one spa I do not want any part of. Bridalwood Spock shows Pip Petals at her worst. I couldn't stand her dolcish performance in this episode, as it horribly reminded me of how she was introduced in A New Generation. Selfish and honestly such a prick. Her behavior during every scene she's in didn't help me attempting to enjoy the actual good sections in between. I particularly reached my limit when she was upfront maligning Izzy's insane but meaningful assistant to the point she made her cry. Izzy had no justified reason in apologizing to Pip, as it was her fault. That was the last straw, and I knew I couldn't consider this episode for anything higher than an average rating. Nevertheless, it's riveting we got to experience an unexplored region of Bridalwood. At least that's one advantage this episode has, since it doesn't entirely take place in Maritime Bay. The spa certainly sounds like a joyful time, as we got treated to a cool short montage of the array of recreations to indulge in. Izzy would be a natural in tour guiding, because the way she described everything with great energy was inviting. The Hooficure stream with those tiny isopods reminded me of those fish tubs you put your feet into. But it's such a shame, however, that the lesson of not judging things by their cover wasn't put into effect efficiently or quickly enough to deliver. It got overshadowed by Pip's stubbornness. Plus, the ending was somewhat rushed, which didn't give me enough time to actually appreciate the message itself. Bridalwood Spog? More like Bridalwood Slog. Ha 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 ha. Oh, my bad, Tom. Well, I am going to get absolutely slaughtered for this one, am I? Basically, Sneaksy Strikes Again is more style over substance. The distinct controversy centered around graffiti as a whole is tricky to explain. This episode has a respectful approach to exploring both sides of the argument if it is art or vandalism. Bringing Izzy to the forefront as the main subject of the story was appropriate, knowing that she is the craftiest pony of the main 5. And I'll admit, her artsy and extremely colourful musical was the pinnacle scene of the episode. Although, yet again, the inconsistent performances of this episode sorely let it down. With how everyone blankly appraises Sneaksy's activities, they're okay with public property being defaced? How can Sunny not catch on to Izzy causing the street art when she was with Izzy at the start? The crazy mimicry she made was certainly an indication to that fact. Queen Haven having the authority to drill out a police station wall and somehow overriding the laws implemented? It's not funny, it's frustrating. It morally makes zero sense, and it dares to display Hitch Trailblazer as the only one in the wrong. Sincerely, I was on Hitch's side for the duration of the episode, as he is the only one with the right type of adjudication. It's almost like Hitch instinctively knew Izzy was Sneaksy, because he talks about how to properly make street art without violating rules in her presence. She was a troublemaker, so it's a good thing that Izzy corrects her actions. But the outcome is a wasted possibility to deepen the secret identity story Posey was talking about in the gallery. If Pip found out Sneaksy was Izzy all along, Pip could have promised to never tell and keep Izzy's secret, therefore opening the door to further strengthen their friendship for the better. Yet Pip shrugged it off like a silly coincidence, and I felt cheated at the prospect of a more satisfactory satisfactory ending. I greatly hope Sneaksy doesn't strike again. This isn't art or even vandalism. It's Discord. Oh boy, I need to explain myself here. Truth be told, this episode is defectively written. I understand that some of you will undoubtedly disagree with me on this one, but I'm sorry, I cannot find much entertainment in this story. Zipp's Yes Day doesn't feel natural for placing the demonstration of peer pressuring into the foreground of the plot. The activity montage was alright, and the ending does try its best to wrap itself up in a humble fashion. Even Zipp's rainbow-fied hair leaves a positive and unforgettable lasting impression. But I apologize for what I'm going to say. The episode doesn't ground its friendship lesson in reality. It's displayed with polarizing negligence, and frankly, it's somewhat toxic. Sunny, Hitch, and Pip are written like cardboard versions of themselves, while Izzy is the only one with a hint of self-respect. It's arguable they don't give Zipp any humiliating interests, but here's my counter. They never asked her what she would rather do instead. The ideas are coming directly from them without any consideration for Zipp. I can't help but remember how she was treated inconsiderably in the first Make Your Mark special. Nobody should be manipulated out of their comfort zones, especially concerning those who feel reticent despite the meaningful ambitions. Remember in Main Melody when Zipp was afraid at first, but soon she allowed Pip to stylize her mane? It happened because of a wholesome interaction that was met with success. This episode throws that level of sensibility out of the window for the sake of a saturated visual via characterization sacrifice. It makes the main five's friendship look corrosive instead of healthy. The pacing was overstuffed with too many handfuls of ideas that don't work to a narrative standpoint. They are treating it as if the episode was a minute long. I do understand what the story was aiming for, but pity that it was written with the rubber end rather than the pen tip. Zipp's Yes Day was a no day in my head. Sorry, everybody. This episode disgusted me beyond belief. Jessica and Naomi, you can't imagine how much you seriously disappointed me. Out of all the Tell Your Tale episodes, Sparky's Sick made me touch an ounce of anger I never knew I had. Unlike pretty much everyone who wanted to rip out the dragon's guts, I, on the other hoof, felt sorry for Sparky Sparkeroni due to the way he was disrespectfully written. There was completely no need to try and blow an obvious fact out of proportion for why Sparky is a baby, and this was the breaking point. The first half of the episode is strangely enjoyable, with the main five genuinely bonding with Sparky to treat his hiccups before his magic could do any more severe damage to the bay. Each of them had cool moments of clarity, and hearing Sparky start to speak clearer was cute. Yet my mind was screaming at me the inevitable was coming, and even before I knew that, the episode was already doomed from the first line spoken. The juvenile dialogue with unfunny jokes about you-know-what and the constant mention of immature things only increased my desire to quit watching. I have no idea how the voice actors kept a straight face while recording their lines. Plus, why was it a good idea to bring Misty and Opaline into the episode when it was doing okay without them to begin with? Their roles entirely don't pay off to the sickness concept, and it's another pathetic method at trying to capture Sparky. It only makes the most atrocious moment in the episode feel like someone threw a brick at me in the balls. I'm warning you, Fluffbutts, if you so much as snarked at that or even smiled, your sense of humor needs a reality check. How fucking dare you, Jessica and Naomi, use someone we are meant to love and root for as the basis of the cheapest piece of shit joke I have ever seen in my life. Sparky Sick truly makes me sick. I'm so sorry, my boy Sparky, that you were written abhorrently. Oh, look who it is. The genesis of the gas jokes. Not just that, but Pup Hunt is dismally skippable. Zipp is practically the only character that's worth watching, as her analytical occupation is expertly shown in detail. It did remind me how much she shined in Who've Done It, and I liked that for the most part. The episode's moral of missing a pet can be sympathized with, and is something intriguing to mess around with. Although, yet again, it doesn't get brought out in the best way possible to make the story appear just a little bit more emotional or relatable for the audience. This was nothing like how Have You Seen This Dragon was composed. Everyone that is presented in the episode are either playing the idiot ball, sobbing like a tantruming toddler, or screwing around with legitimate efforts to find Cloudpuff. It's nearly like this episode was on a mission to replicate Fool Me Once with its mystery idea embedded into the plot, and what happened to someone or something, but it failed embarrassingly. The solution was heard only 2 minutes in. If they removed that barking sound effect and cut the scene a few seconds earlier outside the Bright House, the story would have kept a stable focus on the enigma dominating the atmosphere. Alright, I kept you waiting. The fart joke during the last moments of the episode essentially taints any kind of enjoyment it could have had. It's not the kind of positive humor I was expecting. It takes a huge dump on everybody's worries throughout, like the writer was just trolling us all along. Well, sorry Gretchen, but you made a misery of a possibly decent episode. Cloudpuff should have stayed missing because Pup Hunt is an investigation that should be discontinued. This episode is still trash. I hate this one. Always have. Always will. It's one of Izzy Moonbow's lowest points in the show. You could have just mistaken her for Pinkie Pie wearing Izzy's body. She's that demented in dumpster diving. The episode is a convoluted amount of shit boiled down into one giant continuity mistake. Let me explain. Izzy's unicycling wagon is first introduced here, but it doesn't get shown built until Izzy Does It comes out, 4 months after this episode. Izzy also wants to find a final fitting piece for Sunny's lantern, which she completes and gives to her in the first Make Your Mark special, barely a week before this episode. As someone who loves chronology, does this mean Izzy Does It's events occur before or during the first special, while dumpster diving happens after that episode? Oh, for God's sake, it's already confusing me. Izzy causes a colossal amount of stress to all the residents in the Bay, and I can't see how anyone finds it funny. She's terrorizing everybody by means of getting into their personal spaces. Not even her scaring Posey away pays off in an appealing way, since she shrugs off her earring as nothing special for the lantern. What exactly was the point of that chase? I shall admit that the trash song is hauntingly catchy, and I feel violated saying that, because it's basically a shitpost song. Acidic visuals combined with an insane Izzy going cuckoo makes for a weirdly colorful intermission. But a good song doesn't undo the terrible storytelling and pointless potential for a far better tale to tell. Perhaps Izzy should have stayed in the trash, because dumpster diving is a dumpster fire. Haha, haha. Oh look, it's Gretchen again. Having to endure this episode gave me a bad fever. This was not the kind of deserving treatment I was expecting for background ponies like what happened with All That Jazz. Neighfever truly is nauseating to watch, as another creative idea gets rammed into the ground. The flora magic that the Earth ponies possess and experiment with was already implemented in plenty of episodes beforehand, so it didn't feel fresh or just uninspired. Dahlia was unfairly criticized in this episode, as she doesn't feel like her own character or uniquely different from others brought in. Even Posey gives her the hardest slap known to ponykind, but it isn't comedic in the slightest. It only further shows that nothing has changed for her, specifically when she calls Dahlia out in her news interview, even though they are friends. Talk about selfishness, am I right? Not to mention the cringy illness song in the middle of the episode. The pun lyrics were slightly hilarious, but ultimately ultimately, I grew tired of how short and tragically monotonous it was. Dahlia sneezed on the beat and the beat got sicker and turned mundane. It's understandable why the public turns angry at Dahlia for infecting the bay, however she stoops down attempting to blame Sunny for what happened. She was only assisting you to raise your confidence until you got too giddily in the magic, you ungrateful brat. The epilogue too was imbecilic because her sneezing magic fades away within seconds upon launching a business selling that very commodity. Give us an episode showing the obvious wrathful repercussions that came from that salesmanship while you're at it. Ugh, some pony, inject me with a vaccine for this episode, because neighfever gave me a temperature. Never again. Good job, Gretchen. Again. Well, thanks, Celestia, this is the last time you're showing up on this list. What a derogatory way to turn probable interesting character introductions for the Pipsqueaks into something creepy and outright maddening. I'm calling it now. Pipsqueaks Forever is the solid definition of wasted potential. This is basically a day in the life, but absolute crap. Ironically, Gretchen Mallory wrote both episodes and this one came first. Half of its runtime is cramped up with Pip's self-obsession and complaining about not being able to grab the likes of kids. The other half contains inadequate presentations of the Pipsqueaks. I cannot believe how they didn't receive a proper introduction, as they were dumbed down to the point where they couldn't recognize Pip from behind a stupid beard. Sunny has a bland sense of optimism without much acknowledgement to back up her point on being familiarized with online audiences. She isn't exactly tech-savvy like Pip. Pip also takes her message the wrong way by disturbingly stalking Seashell, Glory, and Peach Fizz to know what they like. Isn't this low-key called grooming, Gretchen? Pip's motivations are driven wholly by unoriginal desperation to prevent her recognition going up in flames. The product creation montage with their cutie marks glowing and their live stream during the end could have been great. However, I was left immensely bored after the story had nearly nothing of value to offer. The Pipsqueaks deserved better than an episode that transformed Pip Petals into a major freak. Pipsqueaks Forever should be called Pipsqueaks Never. Now, please improve, Gretchen. Please! Christ almighty, don't get me started on this one. I have a burning passion against this fucked up episode. I've given Nightmare Roommate too many rewatches to see if my expectations can be switched around, but I honestly cannot find a single redeeming quality inside. Izzy Moonbow is extremely guilty for providing us with her worst performance yet. Sunny, Pip, and Zip's hollow expressions mirror my own because I was left utterly baffled with what was going on. Izzy is unbearably annoying with every little inconvenience she does around the Bright House. When she trashes the entire place, it isn't hilarious, it's irritating to see her characterized falsely. She thought a toothbrush was an ear cleaner? What a fucking embarrassment. It doesn't help how turbulent Izzy acts by making a hassle of everything for me to understand her conduct. She literally acted like a rejected child of Pinkie Pie's. I do not see what righteous point there was to bring Hitch into the story when all he is going to be is a useless expository device. Sunny explained everything they needed to know before they went straight to him. Izzy being hugely unappreciative with the gifts given so she can naturally blend in with her friends grimly pissed me off. If the scene of Izzy observing her friends doing their thing was actually implemented at the start and she was shown as hesitant to join in, that would have worked perfectly to drive the episode's hilarity in the right way. But yeah, why wasn't it at the beginning? Including it at the end after the solution is presented just makes Izzy look like more of a dick and more annoying than usual. Alex Collier, all you had to do was switch up 2 scenes and the episode would have been pitch perfect. Shame not, because Izzy's role is revolting, the characters were poorly written, the ending is contrived, and pretty much how this episode was constructed is illogical. Nightmare Roommate unquestionably is a nightmare. Fuck it, writer Tartarus. Fuck it! the bottom of the line, the scum of Equestria. This episode is the worst one of them all. Baby Critters Club is the exact reason why people have an interest in despising Gen 5. I'm not joking. Who exactly thinks this episode is even remotely entertaining? It's a shitfest of exasperating so-called humor, and most importantly, why did Jessica and Naomi think it would be genuinely a good idea to treat poor Jazz Hooves like a lousy punching bag? It's colossally confusing why she was made the main protagonist when she's got zilch experience in babysitting. Did they do a lucky dip in choosing who to torture for an episode? Hitch's critters were also insufferable, as their level of intellect and awareness were abused to make them behave like insubordinate little twats. Unlike the Cutie Muck mix-up when the critters are literally only innocent animals, this episode treats each and every one of them like venomous babies having endless fits, and it continuously made me facepalm. If I thought Nightmare Roommate was bad enough, Baby Critters Club breaks the dial and goes beyond in being terrible. Not to forget the Alicorn mirror being able to operate inside the Bright House when established that it in fact can't in the traditional unicorn sleepover. How on earth didn't Jessica and Naomi notice that factual mistake? Oh, and there's real feces in this one. Ugh, just stop it, you two! I cannot believe how rapidly the story wrapped up with a catwalk montage and expecting us to just accept that? It's such a spit in the viewers' faces. We can't ignore the obvious flaws with setting up a more intriguing event with the main five and their fabulous costumes. What the fuck were they up to? Not even showing us one little scene of the main five where they went. Maybe they could have been shown with their phones worrying over Jazz if she was doing a good job or not. Anything! It snatches us away in favor of a story that should be ranked as a 0 on IMDb. The Baby Critters Club will never be critically approved. It's a natural disaster piece of episodic composition. Jessica and Naomi, don't do this again. Just don't. Ooh, well, Fluffbutts, that wraps up my picks of the worst 15 Tell Your Tale episodes. Apologies if I sounded rather displeasing. Remember to please not take my opinions as official. Everyone has different thoughts, and they should be respected. The next video in this series will be the top 10 best G5 songs. Oh my, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I cannot wait for that day. Don't forget to like and hoof tap this video, and comment your thoughts down below of what your picks are of the worst Tell Your Tale episodes, and subscribe to my channel for more videos and many more content coming soon. And also, don't forget to leave a pledge on my Patreon page down in the description below, so you can help support me in making these fantastic videos more consistently. And I shall see you all very soon. Goodbye! 5 songs!